Lincoln is to be found on the eastern side of Great Britain. It is the county town of Lincolnshire. It has had a colourful past. Most important was its early Roman settlement called Lindum Colonia, of which there remains many of its ruins exposed or made into the parts of later buildings. During the reign of Emperor Nero, about 58 to 68 AD, it was a Roman legionary fortress. It was first occupied by the 9th Legion Hispana. It was then occupied by the 2nd Legion Adiutrix. The fortress became a colonia in 86 AD under the reign of Domitian. It was a settlement for retired soldiers who received a pension and a grant of land to settle there. The colonia developed and a second part called the Lower Colonia was added between the Upper Colonia on the hill and the River Witham. There was a forum, baths, temples, buildings, and shops. All these were protected by stone walls. It is said that the Upper Colonia had its stone walls built in the 2nd century. Those of the Lower Colonia were built in the late 2nd or even in the early 3rd centuries. The settlement expanded to include the southern edge of the River Witham. This is known as Wigford. In the early 3rd century, the Roman Empire was reorganized, and Lindum Colonia became the provincial capital of Britannia Secunda. In the 4th century, Lincoln continued to grow. Christianity came. The fall of the Roman Empire in 476 AD and the deposition of Emperor Romulus Augustulus saw the Romans leave, and so in the 5th century the colonia grew smaller. Evidence suggests that the Romano-British life continued for some time after, even with the onset of the Dark Ages. There is much evidence remaining in the city that confirms that the Romans lived, worked, and slept here. These are the ruinous structures found on the streets, in gardens, and even inside buildings. These include, to name just a selection, the remains of the colonnade of the Forum on Bailgate, the defensive ditch on Temple Gardens on Lindum Road, the water storage tank on East Bight, the sunken remains of the Roman East Gate on Eastgate, and the section of the eastern wall at Eastgate too. There are also the remains of the lower West Gate inside a building protected by a glass cabinet on Lincoln High Street. Most impressive is the Mint Wall to be found on Westgate. The film will look at the main 14 sites to be found in Lincoln, each with a description, details of its location, its purpose, its current condition, and an activity to get you thinking. So, in the words of the Romans, enjoy the film, or to be more accurate, through pellicula. This is a picture of the Forum's eastern colonnade. It was discovered in 1878. These can be found on Bailgate as brick roundels. Some of the columns are doubled and tripled. These mark the Forum complex. It was the heart of the city, being used as a marketplace and for political and religious meetings. The column bases still survive deep beneath the Bailgate buildings. The condition of them cannot be determined from the surface, but their bases are preserved deep underground. Think about all the people trading there. What type of goods were sold? This is a picture of Lindum Colonia's 4th century defensive ditch. The ruin of the defensive earthwork of the Lower Colonia eastern wall can be found towards the eastern edge of the Usher Gallery. This was a defensive ditch that was used by the Romans to slow down and funnel attacking forces toward a more fortified position. The ditch retains its shape and is used to form a sculpture called the Way of the Clouds. Think about all those invading forces approaching the ditch. Did it stumble them? This is a picture of the Colonia Wall. It was discovered as late as 1970 and 1979 following a series of archaeological excavations. On the grass is the outline of a water storage tank, or more precisely, Castella Macqui. The remains of this can be found on East Bite-off Bailgate. It was used by the Roman people of Lincoln as a large water storage tank to provide water for the public baths located immediately to the south of it. The condition of the site is good and is protected behind a fence. Think about all the water stored in it. How was it consumed? This is a picture of the North Tower to the east gate of the Upper Colonia. The remains of this can be found in the grounds of the Lincoln Hotel on Eastgate. It was used by the Romans as the main in and out route to the Upper Colonia for vehicular traffic. The location of the South Tower was found to the south. It was discovered that the gateway had two large vehicular arches with no smaller pedestrian arches. The condition of the site is good and is protected below ground level in a well. Think about all the vehicular transport that used it. Who did it carry? This is a picture of the eastern wall that runs north from the east gate of the Upper Colonia. It is said to be one of the longest surviving sections of the wall. It is located at the back of the Lincoln Hotel on Eastgate. Its purpose was to provide adequate protection to those settled in the city from outside invaders. The condition of it is fair, and although it is covered in foliage, the remains are still worth seeing. Think about what it would have looked like in Roman times. Did it intimidate outside invaders? This picture is of the west gate to the Lower Colonia, protected in a large glass cabinet. It can be found inside the Pop World nightclub on Lincoln's High Street. Together with the ruins found on the park, this formed part of the gateway to the Lower Colonia, used as access to the western side of the city by pedestrian and vehicular traffic. The wall fragment is in good condition and is protected by a large glass cabinet. Think about what it looked like when it was complete. Did it deter potential invaders? This is a picture of the Mint Wall. It is said to be one of the most significant Roman remains in Great Britain. The remains of this can be found around the back of the Castle Hotel on Westgate. The wall is the only surviving part of the basilica. This was the large public hall that stood towards the northern end of the forum. This would have been the seat of the government of Lindum Colonia. The wall is in exceptionally good condition, as it has been restored to be used as a wall to divide land between houses. Think about all the people who used the building. What was discussed therein? This picture is the line of the western wall of the Lower Colonia. It is the steep and narrow pedestrian street of Motherby Hill. The line of it is the same as the line of the western wall of the Lower Colonia. The remains of this line can be found on Motherby Hill, off Spring Hill. The line was used by the Romans for defending the western side of the Colonia from hostile tribal folk. The condition cannot be assessed as there are no ruins, but the line is still there as straight as it was in Roman times. Think about what it would have looked like at the same spot all those years ago. Did it protect the colonia? This is a picture of the ruin of the north gate to the upper colonia. It can be found on Bailgate. It was used for vehicular and pedestrian transport. The arch still allows traffic through it. The condition of it is good, but it has been reconstructed. A lorry got stuck under it in 1964 and it was restored. The same incident occurred in 2017. It is suffering with recent severe winter weather. In 2012 it was put on alert by English Heritage. Think about all the people that passed under it. What types of transport were used? The picture shows the surviving gate and wall of a western gateway into the lower colonia. It was excavated between 1968 and 1972. A votive offering was found there containing a wine flagon, bones, and an egg. It is visible beneath the City of Lincoln Council offices on the park. It was a gateway to the lower colonia, created in the late 2nd century. The site is in good condition, but there is foliage growth. The wall sadly suffered vandalism in August 2025. Think about the people that walked through it. What did they look like? This is a picture of the gateway on the western wall of the lower colonia known as Poston Gate. It was discovered in the 1970s by excavation. Its remains are protected in a room below Saltergate. Poston Gate is accessible by appointment only as it is managed by Lincoln Museum staff. It was a smaller gateway through which pedestrians and merchants could enter Lindum Colonia. It was built in the 4th century. The ruins are in good condition and protected from weather by being enclosed in a cellar. Think about the people that would have used it. Where were they going? This is a picture of a forgotten section of the eastern wall of the lower colonia. This ruin can be found towards the north of Temple Gardens, next to the Usher Gallery on Lindum Road at a right angle to the southern wall of the medieval Bishop's Palace. The wall was used to defend the eastern side of the lower colonia against troublesome invaders. It is in fair condition but has much foliage and roots intertwined on it. Think about how dominating it looked like to people wanting to enter the colonia. Did it stop them trying to conquer it? This is a picture of a strip of stone that was part of the southern gate of the upper colonia. It is located on Steep Hill. It divided the upper and lower parts. It was an internal structure and did not provide any defense. It was rebuilt in the 3rd century. Part of the spina that was between the two large central arches can be seen inside the present-day shop. The strip is in good condition as it has been preserved as part of the buildings on Steep Hill. Think about its striking appearance from those approaching it from the lower colonia. Who were people visiting in the upper part of the city? This is a picture of the Forum Well. It was originally inside a building towards the eastern side of the Forum. The well was partially excavated in 1984. It is located on Bailgate just south of Newport Arch. The well was one of a number that served the Roman folk. It served the water needs of the officials, stallholders, and merchants whose daily lives revolved around the Forum. It is in good condition and is now covered over for protection. Think about all the people that used it daily. What drinking vessels did they use? It is clear from satellite images that the present city of Lincoln is to be found on the eastern side of Great Britain. It has grown since the Romans left in about 476 AD. It is important today as it is the county town of Lincolnshire. As we can see from surviving evidence, it has had a colourful past. Most important was its early Roman settlement called Lindum Colonia, of which there remains many of its ruins exposed and made into the parts of later buildings. The modern cathedral city of Lincoln has seen many events since the Romans left and a population expansion. In the recent census of 2021, it had a population of 103,813. New suburbs appeared after 1945 and now the Lincoln built-up area extends outside of the city boundaries and includes the town of North Hykeham. The villages of Bracebridge Heath, Canwick, South Hykeham and Wardington are included. After the Romans left, events in the history of Lincoln do not disappoint. In 1150, Lincoln was among the richest towns in England because of its production of Lincoln green. This was the especially fine dyed cloth. It was this woolen cloth that was believed to have been worn by Robin Hood. It survived a typhoid outbreak in November 1904 to August 1905. This was caused by people using polluted drinking water from Hartshorne Lake and the River Witham. Over 1,000 people contracted the disease and fatalities totaled 113. Lincoln survived the First and Second World Wars. During this time of chaos, Lincoln switched to a full-scale war production. In fact, the first ever tanks were invented, designed and built in Lincoln by William Foster and Company, and there is a memorial dedicated to this event on the Tritton Road roundabout at the junction with the A57. It was created in 2015. This is because all tanks were evaluated here before it became the suburbs of the city. Despite its heavy war production, the heavy industry declined in the later part of the 20th century and only Ruston has survived. It is now called Siemens. The warehouse buildings have found other uses, such as with the University of Lincoln, that in itself has brought more money into the city since its opening in 1996. The once bustling Brayford area and its buildings are now mostly campus buildings. Lincoln does, on the other hand, have a growing IT economy with the creation of the computer. E-commerce mail order companies like Dynex Semiconductor have emerged. The city is a tourist hotspot for visitors wanting to examine the Roman ruins and its past. There are 2 museums and an art gallery. These include the collection, now called Lincoln Museum, and the Museum of Lincolnshire Life that is well worth a visit. The Usher Gallery has a notable collection of art pieces. In fact, Lincoln Museum contains over 2 million objects from various periods of the city's history, including the Romans. Other attractions include the recently added International Bomber Command Center to celebrate the county's bomber heritage. Tourism has been increased with the annual Christmas market on Bailgate, but sadly this event has declined or even been closed in recent years. As we have seen, there is much evidence remaining in the city that confirms that the Romans lived, worked, and slept here. These are the ruinous structures found on the streets, in gardens, and even inside buildings. These include, to name a further selection, the defensive line of Motherby Hill off Spring Hill, the iconic Newport Arch on Bailgate, the impressive remains of the lower West Gate on the Park, and the smaller postern gate in a cellar on Saltergate. The Temple Garden Wall next to the Usher Gallery on Lindum Road offers another glimpse of the eastern defence wall of the Colonia. There are also the remains of the Upper South Gate on Steep Hill, not forgetting the well on Bailgate to provide water. The film has looked at the main 14 sites to be found in Lincoln. Distinct types of ruins are to be found dotted about in various locations in the city. Each had their own unique purpose, but they vary in condition from fair to exceptionally good. I hope that the questions have got you thinking about what it was like to live in Lincoln at the time of the Romans. Well, that concludes the film. So, in the words of the Romans, goodbye, or to be more accurate, veil.
Ja,